All right, case 16.
So at low power, it's a well-formed nodular lesion that's dermal. It's really cellular,
Yep.
and it looks like kind of multinodular as well.
Yeah, good. One nodule, two nodules, good. Yep.
And on higher power, there you see like spindle cells. There's like capillary-sized vessels, of course, and you see like these irregular vascular spaces
Yeah.
kind of going into the surrounding tissues. There's RBC extravasation, so kind of like a mix of like capillary areas and infiltrative like vascular spaces. So it looks like kind of nodular Kaposi sarcoma.
Yeah, exactly. This is the nodular form or kind of tumor form of Kaposi sarcoma or Kaposi sarcoma, however you like to say it. I think my mentor, Mark Edgar, told me it was Kaposi. I don't know if that's actually right. I think Dr. Kaposi was Hungarian, if I recall, but I might be wrong about that. All right. So if I am, someone put some knowledge for me down in the comments section. So the nodular form, very early patch stage Kaposi can be tricky to recognize because it looks like stasis or something else. But also the really advanced nodular forms sometimes can also be hard. This one's really easy and classic because it's got lots of blood in it. But every once in a while they don't have much blood, and then you're left with what is this cellular, kind of atypical but not wildly pleomorphic, ugly spindly lesion that's got plump kind of spindle cells, with a kind of bluish gray, sort of purpley amphiphilic cytoplasm. So here it's great when you've got the blood-filled spaces, all right? So we got multinodular and some atypia. The spindle cells are plump usually, and they usually have a little atypia, but not as dramatic as angiosarc, and they usually have some mitotic activity. But I find that often if I don't recognize this right away as Kaposi, I sometimes will struggle to decide, what is this thing? Is this benign or malignant? It looks atypical. I had one like that once. I think I had that on Kiko also that had no blood in it. It was really wild. And it was quite hard to recognize without the blood until we thought of it and did HHV8. So the classic description is slit-like channels with red cells, and the red cells often spill out of the vessels. But also another thing Mark Edgar taught me is if you get those slit-like channels cut instead of longitudinally but cut in cross-section, they turn into round little channels, and this he called the colander pattern, like the spaghetti strainer pattern, like a bunch of little holes at the bottom of a spaghetti strainer filled with blood. So blood-filled slit-like spaces or blood-filled round colander pattern, spaghetti strainers pattern, both of those are great for Kaposi sarcoma, okay? The other thing about nodular Kaposi that can be a little hard is sometimes it has patch and plaque stage Kaposi next to it, but sometimes it doesn't. Like this one, actually, we have some dilated lymphatics, probably some background lymphedema, but we don't really, it looks really circumscribed, right? We don't see it trickling and infiltrating out like we saw in that case of patch/plaque stage Kaposi a few slides back. So that can be challenging. I feel like, honestly, probably the majority of tumor stage, or not nodular stage, Kaposi that I see doesn't have great infiltrated trickling vessels in the background. It tends to pack into nodules and not have as much good background regular Kaposi. So you're kind of relying on the pattern in this area. They're nice slit-like spaces with red cells. Also, oftentimes you will see eosinophilic globules in Kaposi. There's some like right here. Some right here. Some have theorized, I think there was actually an electron microscopy study a long time ago that found that at least some of these were thought to represent kind of phagocytosed red cells that are being broken down and making little fragments. I'm not totally sure if all of them are that. Some of them look like little protein droplets to me, but I don't know for sure. But in any case, I've been told that that's true. And then the last thing I wanted to point out here is, look, nodular Kaposi sometimes can get a collarette, and can ulcerate and can get neutrophils on the top, just like a pyogenic granuloma or lobular capillary hemangioma. Now, obviously, if you get down here, that's way too cellular, spindled, too much for lobular capillary hemangioma. Even the inflamed, ulcerated ones, PGs, don't look this much, this cellular, this packed together, okay? But look at this. Now here, Now, the reason that this probably most of what we're seeing here is probably not Kaposi. It's actually polypoid granulation tissue, which looks very, very similar to pyogenic granuloma / lobular capillary hemangioma. So sometimes I've seen this before where Kaposi will ulcerate, and then it will get some granulation tissue growing next to it. And if you only get a biopsy of that area, and even when you do the HHV8 stain, most of the stuff here will probably be negative for HHV8. Is background reactive granulation tissue growing out of the ulcer, not actually the Kaposi. This part here is probably Kaposi. See, it's got the vacuole, or the little bubbles, globules, the more plump, dark blue endothelial cells. But up here, maybe some of that's Kaposi, but I bet a lot of this is not. You could go either way, but the point is be a little careful. If you see something like a PG on the lower leg of an older patient, always think about, could this be Kaposi? And if you got any doubt, do an HHV8 stain. Also, the other thing that can look kind of in this spectrum of PG-like or Kaposi-like, but will have usually a lot of neutrophils in it and little hazy clusters of bacteria, is called bacillary angiomatosis. It's pretty rare nowadays. Used to be seen much more often when in the days of untreated AIDS, but it can have an overlapping look with PG and a little bit like nodular Kaposi, but usually with a lot of neutrophils in these hazy aggregates of organism, Bartonella, Hensley, or other species. All right. The last thing is that sometimes usually Kaposi has plasma cells. Like almost always, I'd say there's plasma cells. Now, other things can have plasma cells too, but if I see a funny vascular lesion, I start seeing a lot of plasma cells, not a bad idea to think about doing an HHV8 stain, okay? And this, even though it's a sarcoma, I didn't mention this earlier, it's kind of more outside the scope of this discussion. These are not cured by wide local excision like other sarcomas would be. And it's kind of interesting that even I think from the start, I think Dr. Kaposi brought up the fact that this was different from other cancers and wondered at the time, is this actually an infectious phenomenon? Which is amazing because it was like late 1800s, I think. So way, way before we discovered that HHV8, human herpes virus 8, is what drives these, like basically 100% of cases of these. To me, I think of HHV8 as basically a definitional finding in this. I think some other people might argue against that, but I feel like essentially 100% have HHV8s. So I think it's really interesting because in the late 1800s, people didn't really even understand for sure if cancer was infectious or was genetically driven. It was not really fleshed out till the 1900s, you know. So, but really fascinating that even from the beginning. So why is that important? Well, number one, I want to make sure if the treating doctor is someone who hasn't seen Kaposi, I usually like to let them know, hey, this is different than other sarcomas. This is a tumor that is managed kind of palliatively. You're controlling symptoms, and you're not going to cure it by big surgery because it's virally driven. It can pop up in multiple locations. And when it does, that's not the same as satellites or metastasis in the way that like a melanoma would be. You know what I mean? Melanoma that goes to lymph nodes is metastatic. Kaposi that also shows up in a lymph node is not the same as a metastasis. It doesn't indicate necessarily that the patient's going to progress and die. In fact, most people with Kaposi die with Kaposi, still having Kaposi, not from Kaposi, if that makes sense. There are exceptions in people with untreated HIV, but people with untreated HIV and AIDS tend to die from a variety of other things too, other infections, right? And there are some forms of endemic African non-HIV associated Kaposis that can be organ involvement and can be more progressive and cause death. But I don't think, I can't recall ever seeing a patient die from Kaposi in my practice. Definitely it happens, but that's a really important difference. And why, so the reason I'm bringing this up is distinguishing this from, say, spindle cell angiosarcoma is hugely important. You could say, well, they're both vascular and they're both sarcoma, so what's the big deal? This tumor is managed totally different from angiosarcoma. Angiosarcoma, big surgery, maybe radiation, chemo potentially, and has a very guarded prognosis and a high potential for metastasis and death from disease. This tumor is very different from that and is much more indolent and is not going to get cured with the same stuff. Sometimes they use radiation, or sometimes they use like liposomal doxorubicin, but oftentimes it's to kind of manage and palliate and slow the growth of this, and not with the intent to cure, because you can go do a surgery and then they pop up with new lesions because the virus is still around, right? If you're able to get their AIDS under control, or if they have an iatrogenic case where their immune suppression is causing it from transplant or something, which I've seen a ton of immunosuppressed patients in my career, but I don't think, to my knowledge, I've ever seen a case of Kaposi that was due to immunosuppression. It's well described, but I'm just surprised I haven't seen it because I've seen so many transplants, including marrow transplant, severely immunosuppressed patients, and yet I don't think I've seen a case of iatrogenic immunosuppression associated Kaposi that I can recall. We do see it, though the reason that it's theorized to happen in older adults is probably because their immune system gets depressed with old age, the immunoparesis of the elderly. And that's probably what causes the HHV8 that they may have had for many years to start running uncontrolled and then driving the growth of the tumor. All right, so you can go watch the Kaposi 101 video if you want to know more, but I thought those are some important pearls. And now that the time pressure is off, we've sent the poor derm residents off to clinic that I always make them late for. I just wanted you to know.